Hi, and welcome to the Wellness Agents. Thriving in a changing world, and there is always more to learn, is what we're about. I'm Karen,
I'm Sarah,
and
and we thought we'd share today a little bit about ourselves, something we haven't really done. And we've recently had had the inclination to sort of summarize what's brought us to this point, what brought us to where we are in our choices of how we look after ourselves, all aspects of well-being. So yeah, we thought we'd just have a bit of a conversation around, what brings you to this point. Mm.
yeah,
And how you get to be resilient, or for me, when I started looking back over my story, coming from Jersey, Channel Islands, and then moving to England, and then coming to Australia. By the time I was 9, we were in Australia, so I'd moved around a lot, because in each of those places I think there were 2 or 3 houses in Jersey, 2 or 3 houses in England, and then to Australia, where we came out onto a dairy farm, which was very different culture, on many levels. Yeah, and how do you end up from Jersey to Western Australia? It's like, yeah, living in many places. But one thing that, reflecting back, was I didn't come from a family of health conscious people. I didn't come from a family of people that were really um, self-reliant on their health. They were pretty traditional, but
okay,
I wasn't, and it was evident right from the start. Even as a young person, having a horse fall when I was 13 or 14. I think I got a hairline fracture in my forearm, and I just it wasn't natural for me to, oh, we better go get it checked out. It was more like, no, I'll be right. I can fix this, and I wouldn't tell anyone. So I was nursing it, and it healed. So I suppose where that comes from, I don't know, but it's been with me all my life, really. That I was haunting health food shops while I was at high school. And what makes you do that? I don't know what makes you do that.
but knowing, yeah, because like I was, I mean, Mum and Dad used a chiropractor way back when, so it was like
Mm.
that was seen as pretty left field, but that was
Mm.
probably as left field as it got. Um, but also, Mum was a bit of, oh, pick yourself up, dust yourself off sort of lady. She wasn't, no way was she a helicopter mum, I'm telling you that.
No.
Without
Mm.
it being about neglect, it was
No.
just that it was go and be a kid and,
Mm.
scrape your dust yourself off if you, but, and I mean, yeah, the good old mercurochrome in the first aid kit, band-aids and things like that. But, um, I think I probably woke up to, um, I just had small awakenings, but it was probably actually the really big turn was when Dad got seriously ill. And the doctor said, nothing much we can do. Go home, sort out your estate. And because they couldn't offer any assistance, Dad had pancreatic cancer in the days when it was rare, so there wasn't any treatment. Well, the treatment was to remove half your innards, but he was too far gone for that, which was a blessing. And
Mm.
he had the forethought even back then. So we're talking 1996, the second half of 96. He even said then, like, well, what's my recovery going to be like if I was to have that surgery? And they kind of were really shocked that he even asked that. And they said, oh, about 3 months. And they were kind of giving him 4 months to live. And he went, oh, yeah, nah.
Mm.
But it was then at the same time because Ryan, my nephew, had cancer as a 7-year-old, and people popped out of the woodwork with all their different therapies that they were doing mainly from home.
Mm.
And some of them were pretty, well, would you necessarily do that without having a life-threatening disease? And that's when I found kinesiology. But yeah, I wasn't awake all the time, like you had it as an inner knowing. But I
Yeah,
think,
yeah. I used to
yeah,
seek things out, like even as I think before I was 20, and I'd left South Australia and we were on the road, and going up through Kununurra over towards Queensland. I remember even in those remote places, even living in Kununurra in the 80s, I was seeking out health food shops and reading the Pritikin diet. So I was
No,
already looking at those sorts of things. I remember having Leslie Kenton's or Keaton's raw juice book, so I was sort of seeking things that half the ingredients you would never get when you were in a place like Kununurra in the 80s.
yeah, yeah, you
Um,
were lucky. Your veggies were fairly old by the time they got there, sort of
yeah,
thing. 'Cause it was all
but a
coming
lot
back
was
in.
growing there. So there was,
Oh,
there was
true.
a lot that was growing there. But yeah, we lived in some pretty remote stations and things over the years. And so, yeah, you didn't always have access to all the fresh food. But the thing is, you were active, you were outside, and it was pretty clean food. You're eating,
I was going to say the
basic
food was pretty basic.
yeah,
And yeah,
basic and
as-
clean. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Unlike now, where you've got to just read every label because you just really have to be scrutinizing what's been put in it.
yeah, yeah.
But I've always had
So
an
when
interest in
oh,
nutrition. Yeah.
you traveled from the other side of the planet, and like I was a Perth born and bred girl, so it was like,
Mm.
but we did a lot of camping sort of holidays. But I find, your life to me sounds like there's a because I like to travel. You really had that
Mm.
experience of moving.
Moving around within Australia, I suppose, and doing things. So while other people might have been having overseas experiences or things like that, I was more local, but going to remote places, so very
Yeah,
remote places, and then doing trips across the middle of Australia from Mount Gambier through Birdsville up to Broome and a few desert trips like that. Yeah, things that no, not a soul out there, and you head off with very little, and you didn't have
yeah.
mobile phones or things
You
like that.
needed to be self-sufficient. Yeah,
Yeah, very self-sufficient. And there was never a fear. There was never, oh, I'm away from services. I think you just do it. And I think when you're younger, you probably don't maybe have that, or maybe it wasn't instilled in me. I don't know. I never really thought about it. You just really get on with
I
doing
think it
things.
was that was of the time where you just did it
Mm,
and
mm.
did it without you planned as well as you could, but like it wasn't that you weren't risk taking, but you were sensible about your
Yeah,
risk taking.
yeah,
It was within manageable limits, sort of
yeah,
thing, and
yeah.
yeah. So more like you were always innately um right reading and seeking,
I was
but
always learning. Yeah. Even
yeah,
in remote places, there was correspondence. Amazing with what you think we have now with our Zoom and technology and internet. Even back then, I was doing correspondence through Perth College. And
capable. Yeah.
yeah, did my whole Triple C childcare certificate through Perth College while I was traveling all around, and did my practical for that in a kindergarten in Winton in Queensland. So, it was amazing to think of what could be done then remotely. Like if you really want
Yeah.
something, you can do it.
Yeah, well, my eldest sister, when we did our big sailing trip from Fremantle, or from Yanchep to England and back, she did her year 12 by correspondence.
Mm, mm,
So she would have to anticipate what country we're going to be in next, and what's called the post restant. I don't even know if it still exists because of emails and the
yeah.
social medias, and that probably doesn't even exist. So it was POSTE and RESTANTE. And that was known across all global post offices, that someone one day will walk in and say, "Have you got any mail for me?" And
Yes,
they would
yeah.
hold on to it. And she did her entire, um, was possibly year 11 and year 12, um, to be able to, when she got back, be able to go to uni. But
Mm,
yeah, like, we, and it worked. She
yes,
did
it
it.
worked. Yeah, it worked. It's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what brought you to yoga in the first place? When did you first experience yoga?
Oh, I
To even,
experienced yoga first probably when I was in my early 20s and in Broome, living in Broome. And I went as a participant because I was pretty active into aerobics. and I did a bit of training I did a course through UWA, I think, that came to Broome. It was like a weekend course for personal fitness training. Like it was like an intense personal fitness thing. So I did that. And I was teaching a little bit of aerobics, but also I just sort of delved into a little bit of yoga when I first got pregnant as
Oh,
as a tool. And
yeah.
it sort of didn't grab me hugely then. And I didn't go back to it again for many years. And then years later, I find myself in the southwest of WA, and at a time in my life of major change, major relationship upheaval. So I started studying the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda by correspondence again. So spiritual teachings. And in those teachings, first of all, you pledge that you won't share the teachings. And then you just work through them. And I worked through them to the point where I was offered what they call initiation into the self-realization fellowship. But each time the monks came out to Australia, I wasn't around. I was somewhere else. So 3 times, I think, I thought that I might take that initiation and go that next step into their teachings, but the universe had other ideas. So I've never been in a situation where I've given my power away to any one thing. But I will say that those teachings were so profound. They had some movement exercises in them called energization exercises, and they made a huge, huge difference along with the meditations and the deep spiritual teachings. And people were sort of commenting on, what are you doing? Because that was my rock. And it sort of remains that today. This has been the underpinning rock of everything else that I've done ever since. So that sort of was disappointing that I couldn't teach that, because I've been teaching since I was quite a young teenager, sort of like I was born to teach whatever I learn along the way. And I wanted to teach and share it, but of course you couldn't. So I was sort of open to what else might be around. I started doing different spiritual courses. I did some aura reading, some numerology, did quite a lot of numerology. Started looking into kinesiology around that time and did the touch for health things and kinergetics, and I really loved that. Then when I started the Reiki training, so I spent 10 years under this lovely lady who had a whole range of Reiki teacher trainings, as well as angelic energy work and spiritual earth work and all that sort of thing. And I suppose that's what resonates with me the most, all that sort of energy work, all that esoteric energy work. And the whole time I'd been traveling around Australia, I'd usually always seek out a clairvoyant here and there just to get an update, like, I want to know what's happening. So that's always been of interest to me. So I've delved into runes and tarot and things like that, always been very interested in all those sorts of arts. And then working in the community services industry in Bunbury, a lady was working in this organisation and she introduced me to Drew Yoga. She did it for the staff one day. And I thought, oh, what's that? So I looked up online, and that was really, then Drew took over. It sort of, everything else dropped away. I did have plans of taking my kinesiology further, but once I started on the Drew Yoga training path, it's like that was meant to be, because even though I was working full time, single mum, juggling 100 things, nothing ever got in the way of me going to Canberra 3 times a year for 4 days to do this training, year after year after year after year. So I figure, when you're in the flow, things just work. So I started the journey of Drew Yoga in 2007.
Which would be about the time we met.
Maybe, if not
Were you doing
before.
the colour
Yes,
kinesiology at
I
that
did that
time?
color
Yeah.
kinesiology. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
probably before then. Yeah,
because you were ahead of me for that. Mm.
yeah. But yeah, kinesiology really grabbed me because it just made sense. But then the Drew took over, and it's like one or the other.
Yeah.
So then the yoga
And,
journey
and
began.
you
Mm.
do find that one that just goes, that's it. That's what I'm
Mm.
doing,
Mm. Mm.
which is what happened to me with kinesiology as well, as that when my nephew was sick and dad had died by this stage, and I wanted to grieve healthily because I had a couple of girlfriends that had lost their dads, and they kind of lost the plot Like
Mm.
two of them actually had three friends that lost their dads, and two of the girls walked away from the marriage. One of them
Mm.
was everyone that I love dies, so
Mm.
I'm leaving, which is very sad because that tells you that there wasn't a lot wrong with the marriage. She was just
Yeah.
worried about, she was cursing everybody around her, sort of thing, because she'd had a bit of loss around her. And the other one that they got back together, thankfully. But it was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. That's not very, you know, yeah,
Healthy?
not,
Yeah, yeah.
not
Must
keen.
be a better way. Yeah.
So one of the therapists that had worked on my nephew was a kinesiologist, and I went along for that. And from that moment, I walked away going, I could do that. That
Mm.
that was one of the weirdest things I've ever done, but that actually was amazing. I don't know whether it was partially she had been a nurse herself,
Mm.
and so was able to see it as being conducive to knowledge crossing over. But it was just, yeah, from that moment. But we couldn't do anything about it because we were moving out to our gold fields, and there was no one to teach it out there. I don't know whether there is now even, but there certainly wasn't over 20 years ago, sort of thing. So I kind of had to wait till we come back a bit closer to the capital city to be able to do something. But yeah, it's you do know when you've found
Yes.
that thing that you want to work with. And I come across that in the clinic with people when they go, I just feel I should be doing this. And I go, well, why aren't you doing it?
Mm.
Because
Mm.
it'll flow. If you're meant to be doing it, it'll flow. And it
Yeah,
doesn't matter that you feel like you want to be in commerce or you want to be, like we need all those special skills to keep the society ticking over.
yeah,
But if you're meant to be doing weirdo health stuff, do it.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
enough of us.
Not enough, no. And it's a lot of those ancient practices that we've lost the common sense from, or that ancient wisdom that had been brought through generations. And I think as the world has become more fragmented and families have broken up and we don't have that extended family connection anymore, I think that hasn't served us well for holistic health.
Yeah.
We've lost some of those old
And
remedies.
you're not
Mm.
hearing the wisdom of the old, what they would have done,
Yeah.
especially because, like, my grandparents' age were parents during the Depression. So, I mean, they had to, there had to be some resilience around that because because I remember having the conversation with my mum about like how did it go during the depression that everybody was so poor. She said no, if you had a government job, because back then if you had a government job you're never going to get the sack, or you're reliably at a
Mm.
reliable income. It was only if you were self-employed that if you weren't self-employed if you were offering more, like my grandfather did wicker work furniture.
Mm.
Well, people would have made do rather than
Yeah.
purchase a whole
Yes.
new
Yeah.
set of furniture, because it was sort of a luxury. I
Hold
mean,
on.
his
Yeah. Yeah.
chairs were made and stuff like that, but there were probably ways of getting around not having to buy a table and chairs, sort of thing,
Yes.
if you
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't need to. And so, but what I found interesting, and I think for you as well, like we're in hard times now for a lot of people,
Mm.
but there are people that make sure they can afford us, and
Yes.
because of our value to
Yeah.
what we contribute to people's health, and like that's not taken, like that's appreciated that people do
Mm.
um,
Mm.
respect.
Invest in their health. And I think that's something that we've sort of been pulled away from. It's become very reactive healthcare and it's become very quick fix healthcare. Like people want a quick fix. And then
Yeah,
people are beginning to realize, you know what, prevention might be better than cure in a lot of ways. But also there's a lot of other ways of doing it that aren't the quick fix, but will be better for you in the long run. So
a
it's not.
longer lasting. So, like if you've done your back in, when I first started nursing, if you had a bad back, you went to bed. You went, they put you in
Yeah.
traction,
Mm.
as opposed to what you could offer with, where is your back pain? Okay, these are exercises, and it's not exercises that you're going to break out in a sweat and it's all
No.
go, go. It's okay, how can we support the body to relax in that area so that the healing can happen? And
Just
the
get
same,
people back in touch with their bodies because most people, they're very, oh, my back. Well, my back's the problem. And really often it isn't the back that's the problem. It's like when you've got a knee problem. Well, it's probably not the knee that's the problem. And we've lost that sense of holistic. We've got to come back to that holistic health because you're not going to just zone in on your lower back to fix your back, because it's probably your neck and your shoulders and your belly and your legs and
jaw,
yeah,
your jaw.
jaw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
jaw.
And
So
then what was happening just before you hurt your back? Were you really
yes,
angry? Were you
yeah,
really sad? Were
yeah,
you feeling a burden so your shoulders are going?
yeah,
Were you feeling unsupported and that's why your back's not holding out for you, sort of thing?
yeah.
And that's, you know, like people out there, if you saw me for your emotions and Sarah for, we can sort you. The whole
Yeah,
package. But
yeah,
without being too flippant about it, there's truth there. You do need to keep moving, but you've got to move in a way that's healthy for you,
yeah,
like, yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So,
And look at the whole picture. And, often people would say, oh, my back just went on me. Well, nothing ever just goes on you. It's actually been there for quite a long time. And so therefore, there aren't really quick fixes because you've got to undo what got you to that point. So it's like unraveling. Well, what got you there? Let's start unraveling that and get back to wholeness
because
again.
it's one thing that I know I've said to you in the past, and probably only as early as this morning, but it was like, I don't understand why people choose to live in pain or choose to live in anger or choose to, why would you choose? And it might be perceived as don't be so, I don't know, flippant or arrogant or something like that, Karen. I'm not choosing to be in pain. Well, if you're not doing something other than taking tablets,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you've put your faith into a system that might take the pain away for a couple of hours.
yeah. But then
Why
what?
not get
Then what? Mm,
why not do the processes? And the thing is, like, I know it's hard. In
mm,
January, I got told I had to go gluten-free, dairy-free to, relieve the pressure on my gut and therefore hopefully my thyroid. Well, I do believe my thyroid and like both you and I know what it is like to actually do the work
mm,
for
mm,
ourselves
mm.
as, with our own life journeys.
I think that's the purpose of today, isn't it? Like sharing with you the depth that's brought us to what we are, but we aren't just what a kinesiology teaches you. We're not just what yoga teaches you. Underpinning all of that is our life story and the resilience and the journey along the way. So it's years and years and years of study because we've both done so much study over the years, and it's like, yeah, just sort of sharing that with you, the listeners, that yeah, we haven't just popped up yesterday. We've actually been around a long, long time, and underpinning what we bring is a depth of life experience and knowledge to be shared. And that's what the wellness agents are here for, to share and to get those messages out and help you take responsibility for your life.
And that there is always more to learn and we're still learning.
Yeah, always learning, always. Like each course I do, I say, don't let me do another one. I've had enough. And then I finish one and say, hey, I've got another one. And then, oh, that looks good. Oh, this one looks good. It's just
We
fascinating. There is
don't know what we don't know.
no.
And so
Mm,
it's that being prepared to go, well, that sounds really weird, but I'm interested. Well, follow it through a little bit.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Be curious.
Be curious. And that's what the message we'd like to leave you with, is that we acknowledge there's always more to learn. Keep your minds open, stay curious, and be open to stuff that you think you know that could be wrong, that's now changed, or there's new information come to light. And yeah, keep your mind open and be curious. And we'll be back again very soon to share some more information on the people that are coming up for the Real Health Show.
Yes, yes, very exciting.
Yeah. Till then, bye.
Bye.
This content is created for informational purposes only. Always seek the guidance of a qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding your personal health.